I learned a few tricks from crime movies and pretended to be a powerful mafia boss. But I never expected some clueless, rich, second-generation heir to actually believe me. He immediately transferred 10 million yuan as a protection fee and even sent me a recently divorced female supervisor as a gift. All of this happened because I accidentally got my hands on a top-secret file. The document revealed that the company would collapse in 5 days due to a massive financial scandal if I sold this information to the boss in advance. She might be able to find the insider responsible and save the company from disaster. But when I kept reading the file, I froze. Illusion, the eldest granddaughter of the powerful Li family in Yanjing. She had 18 bodyguards, all retired elite special forces soldiers. And inside her office desk, there was a loaded handgun that was kept ready at all times. That I closed my eyes and imagined the scene. Walking through the office building while security guards stared at me, standing in front of Liusion. Then suddenly she pulls out the gun and points it straight at my head. Just imagining that scene made cold sweat pour down my back. My legs almost gave out, but this was my only chance to change my fate. After thinking for a long time, I finally came up with a plan. I would approach her as a mysterious intelligence broker and sell her the information. But to make it believable, I had to remain completely mysterious. So I opened my laptop and started playing The Godfather, carefully studying the way the mafia boss spoke and carried himself. Then I went online and bought several realistic replica pistols that in my story, the mysterious information dealer needed a powerful organization behind him. So I created a character for myself, a cold-blooded assassin who had survived countless life and death situations. Someone whose hands were stained with blood, but the most important part was the eyes that I held the gun and pointed it at the mirror. My expression slowly calmed, and my gaze became colder and colder. The barrel slowly approached my forehead. The sense of immersion became stronger. It felt as if a real gun was pressed against my head. The fear of death made my body tremble uncontrollably. Over the next few days, I also watched extremely violent horror movies. Scene after scene of terrifying images flashed before my eyes. And gradually my gaze became colder and more indifferent. And before I knew it, the final day had arrived. After sending all my coworkers home, I took out my phone and dialed that number. That same moment. On the 58th floor of the same building, Liusion took a silver gray feature phone out her drawer. Seeing an unfamiliar number, she frowned slightly. Who is this? Hello, Miss Li. Who are you? Miss Li, I truly feel sorry for you. In our eyes, you're like a beautiful canary trapped in a golden cage, struggling in a performance whose ending is already predetermined. Inside the office, Liusion's expression turned even colder. Who exactly are you? I calmly continued reading the script I had written earlier. A dangerous aura slowly spread from her. After a moment of silence, she asked in a low voice, what do you want? I'm here to help you. In 50 minutes, send someone to pick me up. As for where I am, I believe someone as capable as Miss Li can figure that out. With that, I hung up the phone first and I straightened my clothes, returned to my desk, and quietly waited for her people to arrive. Just 10 minutes later, Liusion received my file. Name, Roping age, 26 occupation, company employee. It was an extremely ordinary background. But Liusion's expression was unusually serious. That I had worked in this building for 2 years, and she had moved into the building exactly 2 years ago. She didn't believe that was a coincidence. At 6 p.m., a graceful secretary appeared outside my office. Our eyes met. With a faint smile, I immediately called out her identity, Secretary Chow. Let's go. Her expression didn't change as she made a polite gesture for me to follow. Soon we took the elevator to the 58th floor, a mysterious place that only those summoned by Liusion were allowed to enter. Along the long corridor stood a line of security guards in black uniforms, positioned roughly every 15 meters. That I had rehearsed this moment many times in my mind. But facing them in real life still made my legs feel weak. All I could do was keep a dead fish expression, forcing myself to stay calm as I walked toward Liusion's office. That moment, a square-faced, middle-aged man stepped forward, still smiling calmly. I handed my briefcase to Secretary Chow and recited the line I had prepared in advance. Just a routine check, right? I'm someone who always respects the rules. Please go ahead, Captain Bao. Bao Huijun gave me a meaningful look. Inside the company, I used the alias Zhang Wenroing. My real name was known only by Liusion and a few members of the Li family. That I slowly adjusted my glasses and turned slightly. Secretary Chow made another inviting gesture. When Liusion heard the door open, she finished reading the last page of the file before finally raising her head. When we investigated, we found that the person behind this call was just an ordinary employee working in this building. Liusion said coldly, I thought someone had stolen your identity. So tell me, what exactly is your purpose? Calmly, I pulled out the chair beside me and sat down. Looking straight into Li Yuzhen's eyes, I replied with a faint smile, "Didn't I already say? I'm here to help you." Umph. She let out a cold snort. "And how exactly are you going to help me? Kill Song Zuin for me? That's not impossible," I said calmly, "as long as you agree to become my woman." The moment those words left my mouth, Li Yuzhen's face instantly turned ice cold. She pulled open the drawer, took out the silver handgun, and pressed the dark barrel directly against my forehead. "Who sent you?" All it would take was a slight twitch of her finger, and my head would explode like a watermelon. But I didn't even blink. Instead, my eyes slowly scanned her elegant figure as I said calmly, "A Colt M2000 pistol. Your grandfather gave it to you as a birthday gift when you were young. That day, Li Jiangguo held you in his arms and proudly said, 'Who says daughters are inferior to sons? From today onward, my granddaughter Yuzhen will be the tiger of the Li family.'" Li Yuzhen's expression instantly changed. Shock and disbelief flashed across her face, because that moment had only been witnessed by her and her grandfather. Even now, her grandfather had likely forgotten about it. After a moment, she slowly put the gun away and sat back down. "Let's get to the point," she said coldly. I straightened slightly. "Allow me to introduce myself again. I'm an information broker, someone who sells intelligence to those who need it most. My surname is Liu. You can call me Mr. Liu. For the past 2 years, Song Ziwen has been secretly planting spies around you one after another. Although you two chose different paths for your competition, your company Chuanhe is currently rising rapidly. Song Ziwen can't sit still anymore." When I finished revealing the information, Li Yuzhen looked at me coldly and asked only 2 words. "How much?" "I'll give you a discount. 10 million. Li Yuzhen didn't even hesitate. The deal was made instantly. I then took out a pen and paper and wrote down several names along with the evidence connected to them. At the end, I left my bank account number. "Xiao Xiao, come to my office," Li Yuzhen said. Within 2 minutes, Xiao Xiaowei respectfully pushed open the door and walked in. Li Yuzhen's voice was colder than ice. "For the past 2 years, you've taken 5 million from Song Ziwen." Xiao Xiaowei had clearly been chosen by Song Ziwen for her strong psychological resilience. "Presently, where did you hear that?" She said calmly, "I'm willing to reveal all my bank accounts and financial records. You can investigate them yourself." "And what about Li Jinfei, Pan Liang, and Feng Dan?" Li Yuzhen continued. "What nerve you all of deceiving me right under my nose." As each name was revealed, Xiao Xiaowei tried desperately to hide the panic in her eyes. But the brief moment of fear was still caught by Li Yuzhen. Suddenly, bang! The gunshot exploded inside the office. I wiped the corner of my eye and saw blood on my fingertips. Xiao Xiaowei's lips trembled as if she wanted to explain something, but her body collapsed backward, falling at my feet. This was the first time in my life I had witnessed a shooting at such close range. Every hair on my body stood on end. I was terrified, but I couldn't show even the slightest hint of it. My face still carried the faint smile I had forced myself to maintain. Li Yuzhen remained completely calm. She skillfully put the pistol back into the drawer. Mr. Liu, I apologize for letting you witness that Miss Li truly lives up to the title of the tiger of the Li family, I said with admiration. Few people possess such decisiveness. Hearing this, Li Yuzhen finally smiled slightly. She then took out another phone from the drawer and tapped the screen. "Mr. Liu, the payment for our deal has already been transferred. It's been a pleasure working with you. Then I won't disturb you any longer. Miss Li, I'll have someone escort you out." As I stood up to leave, I suddenly noticed something horrifying. Xiao Xiaowei's lifeless face was still staring straight at me, her eyes wide open. For a split second, my heart started pounding wildly. But from the corner of my eye, I saw Li Yuzhen watching me carefully. I forced myself to stay calm and casually nudged the corpse's head aside with my foot. I could see the office door. Li Yuzhen stopped and said, "A car has already been prepared to take you home." I smiled slightly that if possible, I'd rather take the subway. But obviously, this wasn't the right moment to refuse. Soon Bao Huijun escorted me to the underground parking garage and led me to a black Maybach. But when I opened the door and stepped into the car, I froze. A beautiful woman in a business suit was sitting in the back seat. Her eyes were covered with a black cloth blindfold. Even so, I immediately recognized her. She was Lin Shiyue, the supervisor I used to secretly admire. After I sat down, I quietly let out a long breath of relief. During this deal, I discovered something about myself that I had never realized before. It seemed that the more dangerous and tense the situation was, the more calm and rational I could appear on the surface. Just as I was planning to continue pretending, a foot wearing a wine-red high heel slowly brushed against my calf. The owner of that foot seemed nervous. Her toes kept trembling as they lightly touched my leg again and again. Because Lin Shuyue's eyes were covered with a black blindfold, she had no idea that I was actually her subordinate. Then she spoke softly. "Presidently said, if you like, I'm your gift tonight." And she said that no matter where you go, you can feel free to enjoy yourself. "I'm willing," she added quietly. My name is Lin Shuyue. I'm the administrative supervisor in the company. I'm 33 years old, 173 centimeters tall, and about 62 kilograms. I was married once 3 years ago, but my husband died in a car accident 2 years ago. That's all. Half an hour later, the car stopped outside an old residential complex that I stepped out with my briefcase, trying to maintain my steady composure. But my breathing was becoming heavier and harder to hide. Only after entering the dark stairwell did I rush upstairs 2 steps at a time. I quickly took out my phone, which had been on silent the whole time that a message notification appeared on the screen. Bank account ending in 1247 has received a transfer of 10 million yuan at 1845 on December 16. I stared at the number and counted it slowly. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. 10 million at my face flushed red as I swallowed hard. This was money that I would have needed 70 years of non-stop work to earn. I wanted to open my mouth and scream with excitement. But just then, footsteps suddenly echoed from downstairs. I took a deep breath, grabbed my briefcase, and calmly walked up to the 3rd floor. When I pushed open the door of the shared apartment, my roommate Sister Dan walked out of the bathroom, wearing a silky nightgown, steam still surrounding her. She suddenly paused while drying her hair. Normally, she liked teasing me like this. Usually I would blush, avoid eye contact, mumble Sister Dan, and hurry back to my room. But today I didn't react at all. She looked closely at me, and my burning gaze was fixed directly on her. Instead of feeling offended, she smiled slightly, her red lips curling upward. "Pingsy, my beautiful?" she asked playfully. I suddenly said something even I couldn't believe. "Sister Dan, you once said you wanted to be a rich man's mistress. How much money would it take for you to become mine?" She laughed softly. "If it were another man, I need at least 10 billion. But if it's you, Pingsy, maybe 100 million would be enough. You'll have to work hard." After she left, I stood there in shock. Did I really just say that? I had always been an honest and cautious person. But ever since receiving that 10 million, my ambition and desire had completely broken through my rationality. That I stared at myself in the mirror. An indescribable fear suddenly filled my mind. When I looked down, I thought I saw Chao Xiaoyi's twisted face appearing at my feet. Startled, I immediately took off my shoes and threw them away. But when I looked again, it almost seemed like a distorted face was begging me for help. I kept swallowing nervously. After a long time, I finally forced myself to stand up barefoot. I grabbed a black plastic bag, carefully picked up the shoes with 2 fingers, and threw them into the trash with the kitchen waste. After that, I immediately took a hot shower to calm down. Meanwhile, inside Li Yuzhen's office, Bao Huijun had returned from Chao Xiaoyi's apartment with several items. Li Yuzhen opened the sealed evidence bag, glanced at it casually, and pressed it under her hand. "Find a substitute for Chao Xiaoyi," she ordered calmly. "We'll arrange for her to be on a business trip during the year-end promotion period. Create a special team to maintain her identity and handle all of her social interactions in the coming months." After discovering all the spies around her, Li Yuzhen made an extremely bold decision. Instead of exposing them immediately, she decided to play along with Song Ziwen's plan. She would wait until Song Ziwen stirred up public attention and then use that same momentum to launch a massive comeback. This was the courage of Li Yuzhen, the eldest daughter of the Li family of Yanjing. Bao Huijun straightened his posture and nodded seriously. Then Li Yuzhen tapped her fingers on the desk. "What do you think about Mr. Liu?" Bao Huijun replied. "Before he entered your office, I performed a routine inspection. I sensed a bit of nervousness from him." Li Yuzhen immediately reviewed the surveillance footage frame by frame. 2.5 minutes later, she reached a bold conclusion. The nervousness I showed occasionally seemed intentionally left for the cameras to see. Interesting, she murmured like a tea that moment. I had just finished showering and returned to my bedroom. On the bookshelf, I suddenly noticed another secret intelligence envelope. After glancing at it, I was almost scared out of my mind at S.O. I immediately opened the movie Infernal Affairs and started studying the behavior of powerful figures in the police station scenes. I even went to the library to read books like An Actor Prepares and 6 Lectures on Acting. While taking notes, I imagined the posture and presence of a true mafia boss. After preparing all night, I went to work the next day as usual, but when I was about to enter the office building, I saw something surprising. Lin Shue, the woman who had accompanied me in the car last night, was surrounded by co-workers congratulating her. She had just been promoted from administrative supervisor to director. I only needed one glance to understand. This must have been Li Yuzhen's reward for her. Lin Shue tried to remain calm as she walked into the building, but the memories of last night clearly lingered in her mind. Even though she had been blindfolded and never saw my face, she was certain of one thing. The man she met last night was young. When I arrived at my desk and was about to sit down, the supervisor suddenly appeared outside the office, and my eyelids twitched nervously. Just as I was wondering how to deal with the situation, my friend Fisher suddenly patted my shoulder. Let's go. Why are you standing there? Soon we took the elevator to the 48th floor. My palms were sweaty as I followed behind him, trying to avoid the surveillance cameras. But suddenly the camera above us started rotating. My blood instantly heated up. The image of Chao Xiaoyi's death flashed through my mind again. I wanted to avoid the camera, but my legs wouldn't move. When the camera finally pointed directly at me, I forced myself to stay calm. I raised my head, smiled faintly at the lens, and said softly, "Meet again." Watching the monitor, Li Yuzhen tapped her fingers on the desk, a hint of confusion appearing in her cold eyes, because the man she was observing seemed full of contradictions that a beast and a lamb should not exist in the same person. That moment, I had already arrived outside Lin Shui's office. Inside, she was sketching the face of the mysterious man from last night. Suddenly, Sure joked, "Your goddess just got promoted to director." The corner of my mouth lifted slightly, facing Li Yuzhen always brought pressure and tension, but facing Lin Shui brought a strange sense of freedom and satisfaction. After the secretary announced my arrival, I slowly walked into the office. When Lin Shui saw me, she quickly put her sketchbook back into the drawer and picked up another document, planning to finish reading it before speaking with us. But before she could even finish the first page, she frowned slightly and looked up at me. A layer of goosebumps suddenly rose on her pale back. For a brief moment, she felt as if the mysterious, faceless man she had just sketched in the drawer was the very ordinary office worker standing in front of her. But the thought vanished almost instantly. How could someone that presidently treated with such importance possibly be a lowly employee earning $30,000 a month? Regaining her composure, she met my gaze and said firmly, "In our company's year-end promotional campaign, your firm, Wu Mao Culture, is responsible for a very important part of the project." The three of us soon became deeply engaged in discussing the work. But just as the conversation was getting productive, the secretary suddenly knocked on the door and called Sure away for a designer's meeting. The office was left with only Lin Shui and me at tea that moment. Lin Shui unconsciously raised her hand in front of her face, peering through the gaps between her fingers at the young man sitting across from her. And suddenly she realized something shocking. My silhouette perfectly overlapped with the mysterious figure she had drawn earlier. Her eyes lit up. She vaguely remembered that the man last night had a small bump behind his ear, a mole or hair follicle. Confirm her suspicion. She suddenly changed the topic. Lou, there's a file on the bookshelf over there that I can't quite reach. Could you help me get it? I looked directly in her eyes and nodded. She walked over beside me and pointed toward the top shelf, her gaze fixed on my right ear. But just as she was about to confirm what she saw, the office door suddenly knocked again. Ignoring the knocking, she continued looking upward, only to realize that I had already taken the folder and turned around at tea that moment. The secretary pushed the door open again. "Director Lin, Director Kai needs you at a meeting right now." Lin Xiu nodded and had no choice but to leave. Now the large office was left with only me. First Assure was called away, and then Lin Xiu. This clearly wasn't a coincidence. According to the intelligence I had read, Li Yuzhen had an extremely strong desire for control, which meant she was probably watching me from her office right now. The most obvious direction would be directly in front of me. So I looked straight ahead and smiled faintly. Meanwhile, Li Yuzhen was watching the surveillance feed. She zoomed in on the screen until even the writing on my notebook was perfectly visible. Line after line of design requirements and professional sketches appeared clearly. For the first time, a trace of confusion and caution appeared on her beautiful and commanding face that if Lu Ping truly had a powerful organization behind him, then an intelligence agent capable of blending in this perfectly meant that the force and ambition behind him would be impossible to measure. She immediately closed the screen. 2.5 minutes later, she pushed open the door to Lin Shuyue's office. I carefully chose my words and spoke calmly. Miss Li wishes to see me? Of course, she replied. I can see you anytime. But talking to smart people like you is no fun. She smiled slightly so I'll be direct. Mr. Liu, you helped me greatly this time. Would you honor me by having dinner together? Feeling her gaze on me, I wanted to refuse. Dinner was an intimate situation where too many details could be revealed. And if Li Yuzhen chose a formal Western dinner, something I had never experienced, I would likely expose myself very quickly. But instead, I chuckled softly and gently took her right hand. Then I'll look forward to it. Only after watching her leave the office did I finally let out a long breath. That I immediately ran to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and searched Western dining etiquette on my phone. But the moment I opened the first page, I froze. French style, Italian style, British style. There were soups, appetizers, main courses. I quickly exited the page and turned off my phone. Rather than awkwardly trying to imitate Western etiquette, it would be better to calmly say, "Sorry, I've never eaten this before." Later, as promised, I arrived at the underground parking garage. A normal Mercedes was waiting. Li Yuzhen looked up from the documents in her hands when she saw me. Mr. Liu, we meet again. The same words as before, but this time her tone carried a trace of seductive charm. Li Yuzhen was truly a woman of many faces. To be remembered by a woman like Miss Li is truly an honor for me, I said. She didn't continue chatting and soon focused back on the contract in her hands, and I looked out the window, trying to calm my nervous emotions. But suddenly I noticed the reflection of Li Yuzhen's delicate foot in the car window. Just one glance, and I couldn't look away. How could someone have such perfect proportions? Want to touch it? Her voice carried a cold edge. My back instantly stiffened. But no matter what, I couldn't show fear. If possible, I replied calmly. Li Yuzhen smiled slightly and extended her right foot toward me. For some reason, I actually reached out my hand. My fingers slowly moved toward her leg. Her smile remained unchanged, but the coldness in her eyes deepened. Her left hand lowered toward the armrest. According to the intelligence file, another gun was hidden there. If I really touched her, she would shoot me without hesitation. I showed a regretful expression and pulled my hand back. Maybe next time. About 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a classical building at Mr. Liu, please, she said. The restaurant sign was written in French. Damn it. How was I supposed to admit that I had never eaten Western food before? Li Yuzhen poured champagne for me and raised her own glass. After a light sip, she said softly, "This bottle is Dom Perignon Rose Gold, produced in 1996. Only 35 bottles were made." I smiled awkwardly. Then drinking it must be like a pig eating a ginseng fruit, wasting something priceless. Of course, Li Yuzhen could tell. Seems like Mr. Liu doesn't usually eat Western cuisine. My identity doesn't allow me to visit places like this very often. No wonder you've achieved what you have, she said calmly. I had people investigate your background thoroughly, yet they found no flaws at all. The atmosphere gradually relaxed over the next few minutes. I thought the dinner would end smoothly. But suddenly Li Yuzhen asked a dangerous question. Mr. Liu, your circle is extremely mysterious. Even my grandfather speaks carefully about people like you. Could you tell me a little about it? Circle? What circle? I didn't have any circle at all. Looking at her sharp gaze, my brain raced through the intelligence files I had read. After a moment, I forced out a smile that it's a place where the sunlight never reaches. Illusion repeated slowly, a place where the sunlight never reaches. Every hair on my body stood up, taking advantage of the dessert break. I hurried to the restroom and wiped the sweat off my body. From her reaction, I realized something important. The more she believed I had a powerful organization behind me, the more cautious she would become. For now, that was the best strategy. When someone questions you, never try to explain too much. After dinner, Illusion dropped me off at the entrance of my apartment complex. Only after the Mercedes drove away did I walk into the building. Meanwhile, inside the car, Bao Huijun reported, "Miss, we investigated Mr. Liu's records. Everything seems normal. But during his sophomore year in college, he suddenly became extremely active for a period of time. If he was recruited by some organization, it likely happened during that time." Illusion closed her eyes. Every moment she had spent observing me replayed in her mind. After a long silence, she finally reached her conclusion. Meanwhile, as soon as I returned to my rented apartment, I immediately took out the 2 intelligence files hidden behind the bookshelf. Illusion's company showed no changes. Chao Xiaohui's disappearance drew no attention, and the other insiders were still quietly working in their original positions. As I read the intelligence report, my pupils suddenly shrank. The woman was planning to turn the trap against her enemy. She intended to wait until Song Zuin smeared Chuana Company with scandals and pushed the controversy across the entire internet. When the public outrage reached its peak, she would step in and reverse the situation. Under normal circumstances, Illusion would succeed. But unfortunately, she was destined to fail. Because one page of the report clearly stated that if Song Ziwen used his family's power to cut off the overseas logistics company Illusion had already arranged, the consequences would be devastating. Contract violations, destroyed shipments, and cascading losses would crush Chuanhe, completely leaving the company, with no chance of recovery. After organizing my thoughts, I opened the second intelligence file. It was about Chao Min, the founder of Zhonghai Shipping Group, and the third leader of the organization, Yuan Taiping. At the age of 54, Yuan Taiping initiated something called the Gu Raising Plan. 200 children lived in an orphanage, but every day, the orphanage only provided food for 10 people. In order to survive, the children began killing each other. The strongest would live. In the end, one boy survived. His name was Ding Qing. Yuan Taiping adopted him as his godson. From that moment on, Ding Qing became his sharpest blade. For decades, Ding Qing fought and bled for him. But what Ding Qing never imagined was that the man he trusted most, his so-called adoptive father, was actually the mastermind behind the murder of his wife and child. When I reached this part of the report, my heart began to race with excitement. If I told Ding Qing the truth and used him to eliminate Yuan Taiping, then Ding Qing could become the new leader of the group. And once that happened, I could use the group's shipping power to solve Illusion's logistics crisis, and at the same time, it would erase her suspicion and investigation of me. The next night, I arrived at Ding Qing's bar. "Sir, how can I help you?" A staff member asked. "I want to see Mr. Ding Qing." A moment later, the man returned and led me to a private room. I took a deep breath. Before I could even look around the room, a tall figure suddenly appeared in front of me. A massive hand grabbed my head and smashed it straight into the glass panel in the center of the door. The glass shattered instantly. Warm blood began flowing from the back of my head. My vision blurred for a moment before I finally saw the middle-aged man standing before me. He looked like an enraged beast. Pain, fear, terror, all of it surged through me at once. But the feeling disappeared just as quickly, because this situation was exactly what I wanted. Looking at Ding Qing, I revealed a faint smile filled with pity. "Ding Qing, have you ever heard of the Truman Show?" Ding Qing's expression didn't change. Anger was clearly building inside him. He almost grabbed my head again to slam it against the wall, but in the end, he released me. "What are you trying to say? Do you know what price you're about to pay?" Before I finished speaking, several of Ding Qing's men stood up angrily. But Ding Qing raised his hand and stopped them. I walked through the crowd, sat down on the sofa, and calmly drank a glass of champagne. Then I spoke coldly. I suggest everyone in this room put their phones away at a moment later. The men and women in the room placed their phones on the table. But I still wasn't satisfied. My eyes shifted to another middle-aged man. This time, Ding Qing's expression darkened. That man was his closest friend. They had fought side by side, risking their lives for each other. Brother Qing, the man said quietly before placing his phone on the table as well. Ding Qing walked over and sat down beside me. If you can't explain yourself tonight, he said coldly, you won't leave this room alive. That I smiled calmly. Let me tell you a story. This story has two perspectives. The first perspective, winter of 1996, that a 14-year-old orphan was about to die. My voice slowed, giving the story a heavy tone. Most people in the room looked confused, but Ding Qing's eyelids twitched slightly. The other middle-aged man also seemed thoughtful. That year, I continued, the orphanage that usually provided winter supplies suddenly reduced the children's food, and one knew who started it. But if you wanted to live, you had to fight for food like a pack of hyenas. The orphans began forming desperate alliances. The 14-year-old boy secretly gave his own food to a weak child whose rations had been stolen. Then he went out alone to fight other groups for supplies. But one person couldn't fight many. Eventually, he was beaten down. Just as the light in his eyes was about to fade, a tall figure suddenly appeared in front of. I stopped speaking. After seeing that Ding Qing still remained silent, I continued with the second perspective. He was 54 years old. In the winter of 1996, Yuan Taiping proposed the gu-raising plan. The orphanages in the city began cutting supplies. The children had no choice but to fight each other to survive. Meanwhile, that man planted seeds and carefully observed which children showed the greatest talent in this brutal competition. The moment I finished speaking, Ding Qing suddenly looked up. His eyes widened. Blood vessels spread across the whites of his eyes. But I simply smiled calmly. The rage inside him slowly subsided. That winter from his childhood had always been his nightmare. Even now, he often dreamed about it. The girl who starved to death. The boy who was beaten to death protecting their food. Him. Master Yuan had always been the person he respected the most. The man who saved his life. The only light during his darkest moment. Ding Qing lowered his head again and began eating fruit from the plate. Then I continued speaking. Let me tell you another story. Still two perspectives. The first perspective, the 14-year-old orphan grew up. His status and reputation kept rising. But when he turned 30, someone betrayed him. He collapsed in an alley, waiting for death. And at the entrance of that alley, a beautiful woman in a white dress appeared before his eyes. Later, they married. They faced life and death together. It seemed like a good ending. But there's still the second perspective. The man who created the gu-raising plan gathered many talented followers and eventually rose to the position of leader. But he began to fear the 30-year-old Ding Qing. As 5 years later, Ding Qing's wife and child suddenly died at the hands of his enemies. The final sentence echoed through the private room. Ding Qing's eyes became complicated madness, confusion, and disbelief all mixed together. I asked what you said true. To him, Yuan Taiping was like a father. He had never doubted the man for a single moment. He had taken countless bullets and blades for him. He had never once desired that position. Instead of answering, I leaned back in my chair and slowly swirled my wine glass. Then I grinned. Mr. Ding, you hit pretty hard. Why now? I was fully immersed in my role, the mysterious information broker. Ding Qing lowered his voice and spoke seriously. Apologize to this gentleman. Then he suddenly grabbed a champagne bottle and smashed it against his own forehead. Blood dripped down his face, but I remained expressionless. Not enough. Ding Qing clenched his fists. His knees trembled slightly, but he couldn't kneel. His pride and dignity had carried him out of that brutal childhood. He had never knelt before anyone, not even Yuan Taiping. And that was one of the reasons Yuan Taiping feared him. But after a long moment, Ding Qing slowly knelt in front of me. His body trembled. His voice was hoarse. Mr. Chio, tell me, who sits in the second seat of Zhonghai Shipping Group? A strange feeling of satisfaction spread through my body. I slowly rotated the wine glass in my hand and spoke quietly.
If you want confirmation, why don't you ask your good brother?
Ding Qing suddenly looked up in shock. His eyes turned toward the man nearby Yuan Lijun. The man's lips trembled. Brother Qing.